What happens in the brain when people report seeing the light at the end of the tunnel? You've probably heard the stories. Someone nearly dies, and suddenly they float above their body, watching doctors rush to save them, or feel themselves being pulled into a radiant tunnel. Are these glimpses of another world, or simply the brain in its final storm of activity? Today, we'll explore what near-death experiences reveal about the mind, the biology, the mystery, and the meaning behind them. Stay with me, because by the end, you may see your brain and your life in a whole new light. Chapter 1. Facing Mortality, the Hidden Problem. Most of us don't spend our days thinking about death. We scroll, we work, we stress about bills, about emails, about things that, deep down, we know won't matter in the end. But then, something happens. A car accident, a sudden illness, a loved one in the hospital. For a brief moment, the fragility of life breaks through our daily routine. People who have had near-death experiences describe this shock vividly. One moment, they're in the middle of ordinary life. The next, they're staring at the edge of existence. And when they come back, they often say the same thing. The things they worried about before suddenly feel trivial. The arguments, the deadlines, the small ambitions, all shrink in comparison to the sheer gift of being alive. Here's the problem. Most of us wait until crisis strikes to see life clearly. We push off reflection. We tell ourselves we'll start living more fully later. But later has a habit of never arriving. That's why understanding NDEs matters. They are like messages from the edge, reminders that every ordinary day is anything but ordinary. Chapter 2. The Brain Under Threat, Science of NDEs. So, what does science say? Near-death experiences have been reported for centuries, in every culture, every religion, and every age group. But only recently have neuroscientists begun to study them seriously. Here's what we know. 1. The brain on the edge. When the heart stops, oxygen supply to the brain plummets. Within 20 seconds, EEG readings often flatline. But in 2013, a University of Michigan study on rats found something fascinating. Just after cardiac arrest, brain activity spiked. Gamma waves, linked to perception and consciousness, surged to levels higher than when the rats were alive. Could this be the biological spark behind visions of light and out-of-body sensations? 2. The role of neurotransmitters. During extreme stress or trauma, the brain floods with chemicals. Endorphins, creating calm and even euphoria. Ketamine-like activity, linked to dissociation and visions. DMT. Some researchers suspect this psychedelic compound, produced in small amounts in the brain, may play a role in mystical experiences. 3. Memory and the temporal lobe. The temporal lobe, especially near the hippocampus, is involved in memory and self-awareness. Electrical stimulation of this region can induce feelings of leaving the body or hearing voices. Some NDEs may actually be the brain replaying stored fragments in hyperclarity. 4. The AWARE study. Dr. Sam Parnia and his team launched the AWARE study across multiple hospitals. They interviewed patients who had been revived after cardiac arrest. A small percentage recalled vivid experiences. Some even described details in the room that seemed impossible to perceive without consciousness. So, are these hallucinations? Or glimpses of consciousness beyond the brain? Science doesn't have a final answer. But the debate itself reveals something profound. Whether supernatural or neurological, NDEs show us what the brain is capable of under extraordinary conditions. Chapter 3. Life after the light, the shift in perspective. Here's where the story changes. For most people, an NDE isn't just a strange memory, it's a turning point. Over and over, survivors describe the same outcomes. They lose fear of death. They feel more connected to others. They reorient their lives toward meaning, not triviality. Think about that. One brush with death rewires a lifetime of priorities. Why? One theory is that the brain, under trauma, enters what researchers call a hyperreality state. Time distorts, senses sharpen, emotions intensify. It feels more real than reality itself. When the brain encodes that, it leaves a mark that doesn't fade. It's as if the mind says, "You saw how close the end is. Now live differently." Here's the shift. You don't need to almost die to learn this lesson. The neuroscience of NDEs can help us cultivate that same clarity while we're still fully alive. Chapter 4. Cultivating Clarity Without Crisis. So what do near-death experiences really teach us? Here's the paradox. People come back from the edge of death and describe not despair, but clarity. They talk about how fragile time is, how love mattered more than achievement, how connection mattered more than possessions. In philosophy, this echoes the ancient Stoics. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." NDEs force people to confront that truth directly, not as words in a book, but as raw experience. Psychologists call this a mortality reminder. Instead of creating fear, it can spark gratitude. It strips away noise, leaving only what feels essential. And here's the deeper insight. You don't need to die to learn this. The science of the brain shows that reflection, journaling, meditation, even simple daily gratitude, can trigger similar mental states. An NDE is like a lightning bolt that splits open the sky. But philosophy and practice are like lanterns. You can carry them every day, lighting your path with the same clarity. Chapter 5. Rewiring the Mind. Long-term transformation. Near-death experiences don't just fade like dreams. They leave scars, or perhaps gifts, in the brain. Neuroscience has a word for this: neuroplasticity. It means the brain is not fixed. Every intense experience rewires its circuits. And NDEs are among the most intense experiences a human can have. That's why survivors often report lasting changes. Less fear of death, more compassion, a sharper focus on meaning, not trivial goals. It's as if the brain, after crossing that threshold, refuses to return to business as usual. But here's the empowering truth. You don't need a brush with death to reshape your brain. Repetition, through meditation, gratitude, deliberate practice, creates the same rewiring effect, step by step. Think of elite athletes who visualize victory until their brains fire as if it already happened. Or musicians who practice until melodies flow as effortlessly as speech. Or entrepreneurs who fail, adapt, and build resilience like a muscle. In all of these cases, the principle is the same. The brain reshapes itself through experience. NDEs show us the extreme version, but daily practice shows us the accessible one. And if one lesson echoes from both science and philosophy, it's this: you are not a fixed self. You are a work in progress, rewired by what you choose to focus on day after day. Conclusion. So what do near-death experiences really reveal? Not just visions of tunnels or light, not just mystery, but the undeniable truth that the brain and the human spirit are capable of transformation even in the face of death. Science may debate whether NDEs prove an afterlife, but what no one can deny is their impact. People come back changed, rewired for courage, clarity, and compassion. And here's your challenge. Don't wait for a brush with death to wake up. Choose now to live with purpose. Choose now to train your brain, day by day, into the version of yourself you want to become. Because in the end, you're not fighting your brain. You're training it. And every thought, every choice, every moment is part of that training.